I also want to talk a little bit about this post that I saw courtesy of the DJ subreddit, or specifically the DJs subreddit over there on Reddit. And yeah, man, it got me thinking. It got me thinking because maybe because I've been spending a lot of time watching detractor stuff, watching local content. I've also been spending a lot of time listening to Tim Dillon, who's very much a bit of a black pill doomer type of guy, and just in general, consuming all this type of content. It's made me think to myself, like, is being honest and telling the truth kind of overrated? And is also doing things the right way, the correct way, the honest way also overrated? Should you live your life where you try to get as much as possible out of it, regardless of what you have to do it, because we only get one spin around this spinning ball, and because it doesn't really matter? And I say that, I guess, in some relation to like cryptocurrency rug pulls. They're so prevalent, they're so plentiful. Yay, big up Kanye, leaked the information of what these companies do, essentially offering celebrities a huge amount of money up front to promote a certain cryptocurrency, and then they even give them a template of what to say and act like they got ill-advised or they got hacked to pretend like it wasn't them. Then put the coin to market, end up kind of rug pulling the whole thing, and everybody ends up with zero. But the people that made the money are the ones that obviously started the cryptocurrency themselves. So with that Ye text, he kind of exposed how often this stuff happens, and the fact that Ye said no isn't going to change anything, right? Because I think the current crypto situation going on with rug pull is something that Dave Portnoy is associated with, called, like, I think Liberia or something like that, right? People are a bit like pissed off about that. So it seems like that stuff is never going to end. And you don't really hear about a lot of rug pull cryptocurrency people going to prison. They might get socially, extradited, or they might get socially ostracized, like Hoktua girl. But in terms of real life consequences, no one really goes to prison. No one really gets fined. Everyone kind of gets away with it. So it made me think, is maybe being a bad person not that bad in this world that we live in? Because everyone's basically getting everything, everybody's doing what they need to do to get what they need, and they're worrying very little about morality, very little about principles, very little about honesty, very little about those type of things. They're just trying to put food on the table, and they're just trying to secure their family. Why do I say that? I say that because this particular post made me think about that regarding DJs. The title of the post on Reddit says as follows: a DJ in our city made it to the top by lying about everything. So maybe lying is the way to go. Maybe DSP, maybe Dark Side Fiddle is onto something. Maybe actually living your life and being one complete lie and gaslighting yourself to the point where you actually believe the lie might be the way forward. Might be the way forward. The post says as follows: my city has a DJ who now gets booked often at some of our biggest shows. Specifically, he's in our underground scene, and he's always headliner at ticketed afters events. Occasionally, he'll open up for visiting artists at major events. What piqued my curiosity was one of the promoters mentioned that he was signed to a major techno label and played out all over Europe before moving to our city. I thought that was interesting, so I looked deeper at the DJ's Instagram. He very often would post flyers of shows in Europe with his name on them, but somehow would never follow up with pictures of the actual event. Other times he would claim to be playing at major shows and would inevitably say he got cancelled. I did some more digging, and surprise, surprise, these shows never existed. I counted about 10 shows that straight up never existed in the first place. His Instagram has thousands of followers. If you look at his posts, some of them get a few likes and maybe 1 to 2 comments. Other posts will have like thousands of likes and about 5 comments. So he buys all of the followers and the engagement. I decided to look into the label he was signed to, and it has no other artists signed to it. It's literally just him. I looked into the founders of the label, and they're just friends of his. Literally everything he has ever claimed to have been is a lie, and local DJs in our city are so self-centered that they never bother to actually validate his claims of being signed to a DJ and a producer. Moral of the story: fake it till you make it. It's a real thing. So this is a really funny way to approach being a DJ, but it does remind me of something that we ended up doing in the beginning. So when I kind of got into DJing mostly from promoting parties first. I promoted parties first in bars and clubs, and then because I was promoting parties and I couldn't always book DJs to play, I would just end up playing some of the early sets to, you know, to make sure there was some noise in the background and shit. So that's how I basically learned how to DJ. So it was kind of by force or kind of by convenience, right? And then over time, obviously, I fell in love with it. But I remember early on when we were putting on events, we would sometimes make up DJ names to put on a flyer, because sometimes we'd only book one guest. It'd be me, the other guy I did the parties with, and a guest. So it'd be 3 people. So we sometimes felt a little bit insecure about having only 3 names on the lineup. So we'd make up 2 or make up 3 and put them on there. There was at one point where we made up a name that was very similar to some other DJ that plays in the scene. And I remember it caused a bit of an issue with some of us. I think it might be Motive. We got a fucking Motive. I haven't seen him in a fucking long time. But I think it might have been something to do with his friend. And we ended up putting his friend's name on a flyer. And then that caused a little bit of a passer going back and forth on the fucking DMs. We eventually got it sorted out, but it was just funny to find out that one of the made up names that we made was actually a name of a DJ, and it made it seem like we were, you know, obviously doing what we were doing, but with a real DJ. And in the end, I don't think it really mattered. I don't think anyone cared who was on our lineup. I don't think anyone cared who was there. I think the time when I was doing parties, especially the place I was doing parties at, it was mostly a place where people were coming just to get fucked up. Because they like the bar. They like the bar first, the alibi, then they like the night second. So it really didn't matter. All you had to do was just make sure you didn't clear the dance floor. And that was fairly easy when everyone's fucked up to like not clear the dance floor. But that's the only time I remember doing something lie when it comes to DJing. Most of it has all been, unfortunately for me, way too honest for my own good. So if it's playing at some dingy pub somewhere in East London, I'll put the name of the pub on the fucking flyer. If it's playing at an after somewhere in an art gallery somewhere, I'll put the art gallery there. I would never try and like act as if one thing is another thing or another thing is another thing. It would never be the case. And I also would never post like, oh, this event's been cancelled type of thing, because that didn't happen either, because, you know, there weren't that many gigs that were around. So the ones you did get, you weren't quick to kind of cancel them. So that didn't make any more sense. So I wonder though, this approach must work. There's no way that this guy is doing this just by himself. This approach must work across the board, and there must be way more people doing something similar like this, setting up a fake or somewhat dummy, you know, record label, putting out releases on that label, you know, buying views or plays for label releases to make it look like you're way more popular than what you are, so on and so forth. The only issue that I have with it is that I think long term it ends up biting you in the bum. I think the long, slow growth of having to gain or earn one play on Spotify, SoundCloud, or whatever is actually way better, because you end up then with a proper, dedicated, hardcore fan base. I don't think you get that fan base if you buy all the views, because, you know, everyone's kind of coming in at the top sort of thing, so there is no fan base to build from. And you also would imagine, experience-wise as an artist, there is something to be said for playing shitty gigs. There is something to be said for being out there playing horrendous places, having to call people for people, having to play for, you know, at business events, having to do school discos, whatever it may be. There is something to be said for the type of things actually adding a little bit of character to you and making you a far better DJ or an artist overall going forward. So as much as it might be tempting to do all this fake it till you make it shit, I don't think it actually pays off in the long term. I don't think so. I was also mistaken, maybe, because I saw this post courtesy of Popgrave featuring Lady Gaga. It says as follows. Lady Gaga says she used to call venues pretending to be her manager to get booked at the beginning of her career. I would call and pretend to be my manager. I would tell people she's so hot right now, and sometimes I would do an account. I would do an accent, and I would do anything to get booked. So Lady Gaga at the top of the game is also admitting that she also partook in this fake it till you make it scheme by calling up venues, posing as her manager, a manager that didn't exist, hoping to get gigs based off the back of that. Because I think that's what people sign up to booking agencies, right? If you're a DJ, most booking agencies get a lot of inbound requests, or I guess they're the ones reaching out to the clubs. But for the most part, you'd imagine they get a lot of inbound requests, and then those inbound requests go out to certain people based on their style, who they are, blah, 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 blah. So that's probably an integral part of the industry. So maybe actually calling up and pretending like you got an agent already makes you look way more solid and solidified than 95 of the people that already walk in. So already everyone's guard is down, whatever it may be, or they're expecting something to be funny, you know, which is always a weird sort of pressure itself. But this is also proof that it might work at the top end. But I just think in general, maybe I'm trying to cope or talk myself out of lying and faking, because I don't even fucking buy views, which is probably something everyone does. But I think in the long term, if you do take this long, slow way, you end up cultivating a fan base, and it ends up paying off way better in the long run. I think so anyway. Maybe it's not the case, but I definitely do think so. I definitely do think so.